Okay, so Parshat Tetzaveh, Boker Tov, Ruti, how are you?
How is your stepbrother? Is he okay?
No, he's not. Amen. Thank you. Please continue. Yeah, yeah,
And my brother also.
yeah. Yeah, so let's learn for a refuah shalema for Yehoshua Shalom ben Bluma and for
Yitzchak Jonathan Ben.
And Yitzchak Yonatan.
Moshe ben Leah.
And Moshe ben Leah. Yeah. I'm flying out tomorrow morning early to go to Baltimore to be with them a little bit. Yeah. And we shall see. Okay, Ben Sipora. Page 464.
Brother was in a very terrible accident. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear this.
Okay, so Parsha Tetzaveh, the first few psukim deal with the olive oil for the illumination of the menorah. But then, starting with the third pasuk of the Parsha already, we are dealing with the big day kahuna, the garments of the Kohanim, the priestly garments. If you go to Yerushalayim today, and you go up the steps from the Kotel towards the old city, so then on your left there is the what's it called? It's a museum of sorts where they have kalim vessels for the third temple, and they make garments for the Kohanim according to the Temple Institute. Thank you, Kathy. The Temple Institute. Actually, I think the founder is a guy I went to high school with, right? So the Temple Institute, and they're making vessels for the Bayit Shlishi. Even though we say in our prayers in Az Yashir, Mikdash Hashem konenu yadecha, which is actually a quote from Az Yashir from the Torah, from Moshe's song after the splitting of the sea. The Mikdash, the temple of God, konenu yadecha, your hands will establish it. But nevertheless, there are many varying accounts amongst the teachings, the sages, of how the third temple will come about. So they're doing their part and preparing vessels and garments for the Kohanim. Now, let's take a look at Pasuk Bet, verse 2 on page 464. In Hebrew first, Ruti v'chavod v'asita.
ועשו את בגדי אהרון לקדשו ולכהנו לי, ואלה הבגדים אשר יעשו חושן ואפוד ומעיל תולת תשפץ מצלפת ואבנט, ועשו בגדי קודש לאהרון אחיך ולבניך לכהנו לי.
Good. In English, please, from verse 2. Don't be bashful. Kathy, you got him?
Okay, sure. You shall make vestments of sanctity for Aaron, your brother, for glory and splendor. And you shall speak to all the wise-hearted people whom I have invested with a spirit of wisdom, that they shall make the vestments of Aaron to sanctify him to minister to me.
So it's interesting. We talk about the Chachmei Lev, those who have a wise heart. Not those who have skilled hands or artisan knowledge in their brains, in their minds, but Chachmei Lev, those who are wise-hearted. And keep in mind that we were enslaved for 210 years. Everyone who's coming out of Egypt was born into slavery. They were not doing fine artisan work. They were doing slave labor. But those who were Chachmei Lev, right, it goes back to the heart. Those who were the wise-hearted, who very much wanted to play this lofty role, what happened? Asher miletiv ruach chachma. To them, God invested, as it says in English, in them a spirit of wisdom, and they will make these garments of Aaron to sanctify him, l'chano li, that he will then serve me. Continue. These are?
Oh, okay. These are the vestments that they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a tunic of a box-like knit, a turban, and a sash. They shall make vestments of sanctity for Aaron your brother and his sons to minister to me.
Okay. So the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, wore 8 garments, and a regular Kohen wore 4 garments. The special ones that the Kohen Gadol wore was this breastplate, which was made of 12 stones. Each one had the names of the tribe written on it with different letters. And this was a somewhat miraculous garment or piece, and that there was a fold behind it into which the Shem HaMeforash, God's explicit name, was placed. And throughout time, when one of the means of determining what is the heavenly direction we are supposed to take, so one of them was Nevuah, prophecy, well, that lasted. Another one was that the Kohen Gadol would pose the question, and different letters would light up on this breastplate, and that would be the answer. But that needed deciphering. It wasn't clear. Famously, when Hannah, who was the mother of Shmuel, Shmuel HaNavi, Samuel the prophet, so she had no children for many years, and then she went with her husband Elkanah, and they went up to the Mishkan that was then, right? It wasn't yet a Beit HaMikdash, a temple in Jerusalem. The Mishkan was in Shiloh, and he went there, and she was crying. Eli thought that she was shikura, shin, kaf, resh, hey, shikr. What's shikr? Drunk. She thought that she was shikura, right? Because the way she was talking, praying, it wasn't what they were used to. And she says to him, Lo Adoni, no, my master. But the sages explain that she said to him, you're not an Adon. You're not a master in deciphering the messages, because Shin, Kaf, Resh, Hey, the letters for Shikura, are also the same letters as Kaf, Shin, Resh, Hey, which spells out Keshera. Right? So it needed to be interpreted. And we'll soon see some teachings as to why Aharon was chosen to be the one who would wear this breastplate, which needed the deciphering. Anyone know what date it is today?
The 3rd, I think.
Okay. Anyone know what Hebrew date it is today?
Something in Adar.
Something in Adar. This, that, or the Adar, right? Today is the 7th day of Adar, which is a very, very important date in Jewish history. It is the Yortzeit. It is the date of passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses. It is the Yortzeit of Moshe. In Israel, there are many people who on Zayin Adar go up to the city of Meron up north. Meron, most famously, is where the great Talmudic sage of Shimon Bar Yochai is buried. But in the Kabbalistic sense, we are taught that his soul, his neshama, was a spark from the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore, people go up to dance by his kever on Zayin Adar, on the 7th of Adar, which is the Yortzeit of Moshe. Now, this has we're going to soon see many, many Purim connections that are going on over here. First of all, the Gemara says that when Haman was drawing his lots in order to determine which should be the date that would be designated as the day for the final solution, for the annihilation of every single Jew, man, woman, child, right? Anashim, Nashim, V'taf. And when the lot fell out in the month of Adar, he was very, very happy. He thought, this is very fortuitous over here. This is great. Why? Because this is the date of Moshe's death. And therefore he saw that as an omen for the demise of Am Yisroel. But we find that when Hashem, on the day of Moshe's death, the Pasuk says, Me'av Esrim Shana Anochi or Ani Hayom. I today am 120 years old. Complete 120 years. Moshe was born on Zayin Adar, on the 7th of Adar, and Moshe died on Zayin Adar, on the 7th of Adar. So Haman was happy, this is the date, the month of the death of Moshe. He didn't realize this was the month of the birth of Moshe. So it's not the demise of Israel, it is the ascent of Israel. Keep in mind that certainly the day of a person's death is a very, very sad day, of course. But when we view it from a perhaps a emotionally detached Torah prism, then when we get a very different sense. When a person is born, so from a Torah point of view, the neshama, the soul, was sent down from the world of clarity into a world of confusion, where things are obscured, in order for this neshama now to then make choices, to become in control of oneself, and to change oneself, to make oneself more spiritual, more godly. When one is in an environment that doesn't impose that upon us, that is not glaringly apparent, but is up to us, we make the call. And then ultimately, that soul returns back to the spiritual realm, hopefully with the diamonds that it has accumulated during the time that was granted during their foray here in this physical realm. So really at the time of birth, it's a big question mark. Right. Where's this person going to go? What direction will the person take? Will this have been a worthwhile venture or not such a worthwhile venture? It's when a person dies, at that point when they are summoned back to their spiritual home, to their spiritual place, at that point, wow, we can see what that person has accomplished. That is why there is a concept, more in the Sephardic world than the Ashkenazic world, of a Hilula. Hilula is almost a celebration that is made on the yard site of great tzaddikim, a very righteous people. There's a Hilula because look at what this world gained from this person. Look what this person accomplished. Look how successful this person was in this opportunity that was given. And look how the world has gained and still basks in the teachings, in the holiness of this person. So really Haman's whole perspective was a very non-Jewish look on it. To think that since this is the yard site of Moshe, that means that's an omen towards the downfall of the Jewish people. That's not the case at all. But besides that, it was made clear that this is also the birth date of Moshe, and therefore it is a time of ascendancy. Yes, though.
Amen. Could it be also Haman knew about the situation with the golden calf, where they thought Moshe was dead, and he saw the downfall of the people also there?
Perhaps, though. I'm not familiar with that. Now, it's interesting over here that we refer to the garments of Aaron, lekavod, at the very end of Pasuk Bet, lekavod uletiferet, for glory and for splendor. Now, if you look, keep the place over here, but if you turn to page 1252, that's pretty far back. At the end of the stone Chumash, we have the different Megillot. And we have Megillat Esther on page 1252 that we will be reading this Monday night. Everyone please come join us. Monday night and again Tuesday morning. And we discuss this incredible feast party that Achashverosh made. And if you take a look on Pasuk Dalid, verse 4, it says, Bahar Oto, when he showed, et Osher Kavod Malchuto, the riches, Osher Kavod, of the glory, Malchuto, of his kingdom, the et Yikar, and the splendor of Tiferet Gedulato, of Tiferet, of the glory of his majesty. Tiferet Gedulato. So we mentioned the Kavod and we mentioned the Tiferet. What did it say back over here about the garments of the Kohen? L'chavod ula tiferet. For kavod, for honor, and for glory. Baroto et osher kavod malchuto vet yikar tiferet gedulato. He was showing off the kavod and the tiferet, and the Talmud in Masechet Megillah teaches us that he came out in this party wearing the garments of the Kohen Gadol. Why would he be wearing the garments of the Kohen Gadol? So understand that the whole Purim episode takes place at the very end of the 70 years of Galut Bavel, of the Babylonian exile. After the destruction of the first temple, Babylonian exile, 70 years, and then after the 70 years, return to Israel by most of us, and the start of the building of the second temple. And I was very, very struck when Israel celebrated its 70th anniversary. I was very, very struck by that, because 70 is a very significant chunk of time for us as Jews. The entire Galut Bavel, Babylonian exile, was 70 years. And to think that we had been back at that point in Israel for those 70 years, to me was very, very, very powerful that we had reached that point. Achashverosh's party was a celebration of his miscalculation, though he didn't yet know it was a miscalculation. So it was a celebration of his calculation. There was a known prophecy from Yirmiyahu, from Jeremiah, that after 70 years you will be redeemed. And different non-Jewish kings miscalculated the 70 years, and thought if the Jews, being that the Jews were not redeemed by the time, the year which they miscalculated as 70 years, that meant that God had sent them adrift. That God was no longer accompanying, connected to the Jewish people. Right? Which is, or has been, to a great degree, Christian theology. That the Jews are no longer the chosen people, no longer have this close connection. Belshazzar, an earlier king, counted 70 years from the ascent of Nebuchadnezzar, but not from the destruction of the temple. He threw a party. He was assassinated that night. And that was, at that party, the famous handwriting on the wall that Daniel deciphered for him. Right? He too came out with the vessels and the vessels of the temple and the garments of the Kohen Gadol. Achashverosh said he calculated and miscalculated. I will calculate correctly. And in the third year of his reign is when he thought the 70 years were up, and when he threw this fantastic party. And in order to celebrate now the Jews being off the table, now he could wear garments of the Kohen Gadol with impunity. And also, when we speak about the vessels, actually, the vessels, in verse 7 on page 1252. So when we're reading that, there is a specific trup, a certain tune to the trup, to the melody, for the cantillation, for Megillat Esther, that is different than Torah reading, different than Haftorah, different than Ruth and Shir HaShirim, which the two of them are the same, and different than Eicha. Eicha's lamentations that we read on Tisha B'Av, when we mourn the destruction of the temple. And we switch gears, and we read Pasuk Zayin Vashkot B'chlei Zahav, and the drinking was from golden vessels. That's the usual tune from Megillat Esther. And then we change to the tune of Eicha, of lamentation. V'chelim mikelim shonim. And the vessels, no two goblets were alike, but these different vessels, the sages say, were the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple. So they were drinking using vessels from the Beit HaMikdash. It was like this costume, a funny costume, a ridiculing costume to wear that of the Kohen Gadol. That was their celebration. That's what he was celebrating according to the Talmud. And that is why the Jews enjoying this party was such an indication of just how detached, how disconnected we had come from our own Judaism, from who we were. Right? Similar to a presidential candidate that we have today. Yeah.
But look at how attached these enemies of ours were to our
how fixated,
demise.
Yeah.
It's astounding.
Yeah, but we still see it today. Why is there so much anti-Semitism amongst, well, historically amongst Christians, and today amongst many of the Muslims, right? Whereas we don't find it. You go to India, you go to these different places, right? You go to the Far East. You went to Japan. Was there any anti-Semitism you encountered over there? No. You go to China, right? You don't.
There is in China.
Okay, maybe some.
Yes, because I've read about Chinese who wanted to go to Israel or convert. There's a lot of.
Okay, but perhaps, but for the most part, it's been historically amongst the Christians and amongst the Muslims, right? Because they viewed their religions as 2.0, right? But when people who have what they call 1.0 don't upgrade to 2.0, right? So that then undermines, right, the 2.0, right? So there's been a tremendous amount of fixation to this day, right? The United Nations Human Rights Council has item number 7, which is Israel, right? With all that goes on in the world, constant. Now let's discuss the wrongs of Israel. I mean, there is an incredible fixation.
But to go back and calculate years and like the death of this person is got. But what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, and just on that point, before you get to that, and later on, when Esther comes to Achashverosh at the party, and he says to her, Ad Chatzi Malchut, until half the kingdom, V'teyas, it will be done. Right? So Chatzi Malchut, so the Gemara says, Chatzi Malchut, half the kingdom, V'lo davar achotzeitz, not something that will cut the kingdom. Meaning, don't ask me to build the Beit HaMikdash. Don't ask about the rebuilding of the temple. That's got to stay destroyed over there. Yeah. Yes.
Was he wearing all the garments of Kohen Gadol?
It seems yes, though
That means the breastplate?
It would seem so.
Whoa.
It would seem so. It would seem so. Leah, רוצה לשבת פה? רוצה לשבת פה? Okay. Now, so those are a number of the Purim Tetzaveh connections that we have over here. Now, I've said this before, but I can't not say it now, being that today is Zayin Adar. Right? V'ata Tetzaveh b'nei Yisroel, and you shall command b'nei Yisrael. Who's you? Moshe should command b'nei Yisrael. Now, that was Pasuk Chaf. Pasuk Aleph, verse 1. V'ata hakrei v'lecha, and you bring close et Aharon achicha, Aharon your brother. Who's you referring to? Moshe. Right? Very strange. The commentators point out, the Baal Turim points out, that this is the only Parsha since Shemot, when Moshe was born. This is the only Parsha in all of Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim, the entire Torah from the birth of Moshe, where Moshe's name, Lo Mofia, does not appear. Moshe's name is not mentioned in this entire Parsha. This entire Parsha, you will not find Moshe's name mentioned even once. And there are different reasons that are given for this. But the Vilna Gaon points out that Parsha Tetzaveh always comes out during the week of today's event, of the Yortzeit of Moshe. Parsha Tetzaveh is always read during the week that we have the Yortzeit of Moshe. And therefore, he says, the Torah left out Moshe's name, which means, right? It was only, I believe it was Ezra that established this entire Torah reading as we do it today. But it was all arranged that we would always read this Parsha during the week of the Yortzeit of Moshe, and we would notice and feel the absence of Moshe, to remind us that this is the time of reading this Parsha is the time of the year when Moshe died. But the Vilna Gaon, in classic Vilna Gaon fashion, takes this a lot deeper. Granted, Moshe died. Right? Fair enough. But we lift the Torah by Hagvei after Torah, where we say, Zot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe. Right? We're all studying Moshe's Torah. Right? Meaning the Torah of God given to us through Moshe. So Moshe is very much alive whenever we're studying Torah. Whether it's the written Torah, whether it is the oral Torah, the entire Talmud. We hear a lot about Daf Yomi, right, with the big Siyum HaShas, the conclusion of the entire Shas. Daf Yomi is the Mishnah and the Gemara, which takes the teachings of the oral law and expounds upon that. All of that is Moshe Sinai. So Moshe is still very much with us. Granted, Moshe died, but all of the essence of Moshe is with us. And the Vilna Gaon says that too is hinted in our Parsha. If you turn to page 482 for a moment, that's the very, very last page of this Parsha. So something that every bar mitzvah boy knows to do, when he finds out what is his bar mitzvah Parsha, he quickly looks to the very end of the Parsha to see how long is it. How many psukim, how many verses is my Parsha? Right? One of my closest friends, he had Parshat Vayelech, all of 30 psukim. Usually it's a double. That year it wasn't a double. He always managed to get off easy, that guy. Right? I didn't have that. Mine wasn't that long, but it certainly wasn't 30. What does it say over here? Kuf. You see over here at the very end? Right? Pei means that there's a big paragraph break in the Torah itself there. And then it says Kuf Aleph Psukim. Kuf is 100. Aleph is 1 Psukim. There are 101 verses in this Parsha. Very good. You see that, I see that, and we don't see anything further. The Vilna Gaon sees that, and his eyes light up. This is incredible, he says. The Parsha that doesn't have Moshe's name written, Mem, Shin, Hey, has 101 psukim. Get it?
Oh, it's the...
So, yes and no, more than that. He says as follows, right? It's not the gematria of Moshe. Mem is 40, Shin is 300, and Aleph and Hey is 5. But what is it? He says as follows. Every letter has a nigle and a nistar. Every letter has its revealed part and its hidden part. Meaning, let's take the first letter of Moshe's name, Mem. It's not the letter Me. It's not the letter M. It's the letter Mem. How do you spell out the word for the letter Mem? Mem, Mem. 2 Mems. That's how you get Mem. Let's wait. Let's take the second letter, Shin. It's not the letter Sh. It's the letter Shin. Right? How do you spell the word for the letter Shin? Shin, Yud, Nun. That's how you get Shin. The last letter is Hey. Not H, but Hey. The word for the letter Hey is Hey, Aleph. The Vilna Gaon says, 101. That's perfect. Take the hidden part of each of the letters of Moshe. So you have a revealed Mem and a hidden Mem. That's how much? Mem is how much? 40. Shin, you have a revealed Shin, and then you have Yud, Nun. Yud is 10, Nun is 50. That's an additional 60. 40, 60. Hey, Aleph. Aleph is 1. So the nistar of the name Moshe, the hidden parts of the name of Moshe equals 101, the exact amount of verses that we have in this Parsha. What is the message, the Vilna Gaon says? The message is that even though Moshe's name is omitted because Moshe einenu, Moshe is no longer here with us, what part of Moshe is no longer here with us? The nigla, the revealed Moshe, the physical body Moshe that we were able to speak to, see, deal, to interact with. But the nistar of Moshe, the hidden treasure of Moshe, all that he has given to us, that he has passed over to us, the Torah to Moshe, the nistar of Moshe, in this Parsha where his physicality is no longer there, his essence is still fully there. That is what the Vilna Gaon saw when he saw 101 psukim, which I'm sure all of us would have seen that also, had we only been given a few more moments. That would have become very clear to us. But I jumped the gun, I'm sorry. And I shared the Vilna Gaon's teaching before you all would have said, that's obvious, Rabbi, come on, that's simple. Okay.
But whose name is there instead?
Let's double back, okay? So we have Aharon as figuring very prominently in this parsha. Let's look back for a moment. Keep the place over here, and let's turn back to where Hashem is trying to convince Moshe to go to Paro. Yes.
How do you refuse Hashem?
Right? And, right, Moshe's by the burning bush. He sees the burning bush. He approaches it. Hashem saw that he approached it. Hashem, the Malach, that Hashem speaks to him. Up and back, up and back. We're told for 7 days they're going up and back, and Moshe is very, very adamant about not going. Look on page, did I tell you which page you're reading? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 308, 309. I apologize.
307? Oh.
I'm going to go, right? It started, you're right though, it started back over there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It actually started, right? It started back on 303, right? Verse 11, right? Who am I that should go to Paro, take them out? And it's going on and on. 303, 305, 307. Chapter 4, Moshe responded, they won't believe me, they will listen to my voice. They'll say Hashem didn't appear to you. Hashem gives him the signs. Right? Page 309, Moshe's desperate plea. I'm not a lo ish dvarim, anochi, I'm not a man of words. Right? Kikvad peh, I'm heavy of the mouth, heavy of speech. Hashem says, who gives who gives the mouth to a person? Right? Go, I will be with your mouth. Moshe replied, verse 13, please, my Lord, shlach na biyad tishlach. The English is, send through whomever you will send. Right? The simple understanding, anyone but me. Right? Anyone but me. The sages, they sharpen this a bit. They say, shlach na, either biyad tishlach, send with the one whom you will send, meaning ultimately Moshe had this premonition that he was not going to be finishing the job and bringing the children of Israel into the land of Israel. So whoever is going to shlach na biyad tishlach, with whomever you will send, whoever is going to finish the job, why don't you send that individual to start the process? Or, as we're going to focus on now, shlach na biyad tishlach. Rashi says biyad mishata ragil lishloach. Send with the one that you normally send. Who is the leader of the children of Israel? My brother Aaron. Shlach na biyad tishlach. Send with the one whom you normally send. I don't want to usurp the position of Aaron. I'm the kid brother. You should send with the older brother. Certainly keeping in mind how when a younger brother stepped up that didn't always lend to the most domestic tranquility in our history. So Moshe said, send with Aaron. Pasuk Yudalid, verse 14. Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. The anger of Hashem burned against Moshe. Vayomer, he said, hello, behold, Aaron achicha, Aaron your brother, the Levi, Halevi, Yadati, I know, ki daber yidaberhu, he's able to speak. V'gam hinehu yotzei l'kartechi, he's going out to greet you. V'ra'acha, and he will see you. V'samach bilibo, and he will be happy in his heart. He will rejoice in his heart. You're afraid that you are usurping his position? Aaron is going to rejoice, he'll be ecstatic on your behalf. And then Moshe assumed the position. Now, on this Rashi, on verse 14, the Rashi on verse 14, Rashi says, and God got angry. Rashi brings two opinions. One opinion is, whenever the Torah speaks about Charon Af, God's Charon Af, a certain term of anger, there's always a repercussion that results. But here he says, one opinion says, Shimon Karcha says, here there was no repercussion. We don't find anything happening as a result of this. Rabbi Yossi says, no. There was a repercussion. What does God say to Moshe? Behold, Aaron, your brother, the Levite, is coming. Meaning, he says Aaron was meant to be a Levite, a Levi. Let's understand. One of the 12 tribes is Levi. Right? Leah's third son was Levi. From that tribe of Levi, a certain subsection, the descendants of Aaron, became the Kohanim. Moshe was not from that subsection. He remained a Levi. Everyone who was not from Aaron remained a Levi. So, Rabbi Yossi says, there was a repercussion here. Aaron was meant to remain a Levi, and who would have ascended to this high priest position? Moshe. And his descendants would have been the Kohanim. But Moshe, because of this anger of Hashem, was demoted. And Aaron, who had been a Levi, who was destined to be the Levi, from this point, Hu yeh Kohen v'ata Levi. From this point, he will be the Kohen, and you, Moshe, will be the Levi. Okay. Now, there's a beautiful teaching, I believe, from Rav Dessler on this. We have an understanding that we describe Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. This opinion and that opinion, even though they seem to be contradicting one another, are the words of the living God. Right? It's like the story that two guys having an argument. They come to the rabbi. One of them says to the rabbi his whole point. The rabbi says, oh, you're right. The other one gives his whole point. The rabbi says, oh, you're right. They say to him, Rabbi, how could both of us be right? And he says, you're right. Right? So how do we understand Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chayim? This and that are both the words of the living God. Right? In such a case. Right? Was there a repercussion? Yes. Or was there not a repercussion? How could it be that we're saying there was both a repercussion and there was not a repercussion? Both are true. Either there was a repercussion and Moshe was demoted and Aaron was elevated, or there was no repercussion. So he explains it as follows. And he gives a beautiful example that I've given before. right? If I were to ask you, Ruti, to describe this book, what would you say? How would you describe this book?
It's a blue book.
Blue book. Good. Right? About, let's say, 6 inches by 9 inches, we'll say?
Something like
Good. Good. What would you say about it, Elizabeth? It's a white book. You'd say it's a white book. Right? With a blue rim. And it's only 1.5 inches by 9 inches. Right? I'm looking at it, and I say, I know what you're talking about, guys. It's a blue book with gold writing on it. Right? That's what it is. You got the dimensions right, but you said it's a blue book. It's a blue with gold writing. It's not white. It's not blue. It's blue with gold writing on it. Whereas you would say, I don't know what anyone's talking about. It's a gold book with blue. You said it's white? I'm sorry. You're going to say it's 1/8 with blue and gold. Right? But you say it's blue and gold, but it's not 6/9. It's 1/9. Right? And someone underneath is going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? It's only 6 inches, not 9 inches. Right? And it's got blue on 3 sides. Right? All of them are correct. They're all contradictory.